let me give you the best advice I can possibly give you right now. When you write the check to go into any type of mentorship, you have to, number one, have a confirmation that is deeper than logic. You need intuition on your side that is telling you, I got a feeling, not just rationale that this is the right thing. By the way, sometimes my feelings go against rationale and I will go with my feelings because your rationale will screw you. Your rationale only knows how to produce more of what it has in the past. But remember, the whole purpose of mentorship is to get something you've never gotten before. It's to go further, which means there will be a leap of faith. And the only way to do a leap of faith effectively is to believe in something you can't see, or it's to hope in a result that you don't know if it's going to happen. Faith is what brings about our biggest results, not our I know rationale mind that says, until I see it, I will not believe it.
So first thing, Kris, how is that globe spinning?
It's magic.
No, seriously.
Yeah, it's got liquid magnets and it's responding to the Earth's core.
You're so full of crap.
That's what the salesperson told me and I believed them.
Really?
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, you've got this funky gorilla behind you that's got a barrel full of money.
Sorry, that's art.
Donkey Kong,
and the gorilla's angry. It's not a barrel full of money. It's just about take its anger on something.
Can I tell you what the globe reminds me?
Tell me.
That the Earth never stops spinning, that time is always rolling forward.
Even when it seems like your own life does.
And what does Ben Franklin say about time?
I don't know.
He said, time is money.
There you go.
Time is money.
Yes.
Time's away. Kris, ever since I met you, you have always sat up there in front of the camera or on stage and said, you gotta get a mentor.
Yeah.
But how? How do you find a mentor?
First of all, you gotta back up. Everyone's thinking, oh, you gotta go find a mentor. I'm like, no. That's actually not what's going on. Think about it for just a minute. There are people out there that have already achieved what you want,
right?
And they made every possible mistake and still found a way to make it to the top. What would you pay to access that? Because when you talk about time as money, I'm like, like most business owners screw up the first decade. We're learning all of the who to hire and who not to hire and what does it mean to have the right people on the bus and what to spend things on and when you should raise money and when you shouldn't and how much equity to give away. It is amazing how expensive a business owner's mistakes are. But when you finally are done and you figure it out, dude, you can freaking beast business like a boss and make stupid, ludicrous amounts of money. The question though, for me is always, what is the shortest point between two distances?
Straight line.
Yep. And so what's the straight line to success in whatever it is where you're trying to seek it? You know, there's people that will actually go and spend a couple $100,000 on their college education, only to find out that they take a cubicle next to the other person that literally makes more money from them and never went to college because they were hired based on what they know, not where they learned.
If I were to predict 10 years in the future, degrees won't be as important as people think they are today.
That's already true.
It's already changing.
Congratulations, Carson. Your prediction came true.
It's happening. I mean, in 10 years, even big corporations will stop looking at it.
Well, let me ask you, when you're looking at resumes, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for
we're a different kind of company.
Yes.
We're a different kind of company, but let me just ask, what do you actually look for?
Experience. And then we interview for culture.
Yeah, and we interview for culture and we're a results-oriented place. It's either you can do something to produce a result or you can't.
Oh, and by the way, I love when people actually put their results on a resume.
As
like
opposed
instead
to
of being like, I did this task. Like when they get on, then they're like, by the way, I typically close this much in sales every week, or I generated this much money through our marketing
arm. Or I led a department of this many people and we successfully took down this 48-month project in like 16 months.
Right. That's an actual result.
Yep.
And I love seeing that on resumes and I don't see enough of it.
Yeah. So it's really weird to me. I learned this from Napoleon Hill years ago, still remains today one of the classics. It's a must read for every human being on the planet. And he's teaching 17 principles that will lead you to the master key that will unlock your major definite purpose. And in it, he says the second principle is what's called a mastermind. And we take the word for granted. We're like, oh yeah, a mastermind, right? A place where you meet with other successful people. No. Look at the word, mastermind. The mind that has mastered something. Go to the master's mind. So you got to be asking, who is my master? Who's the person that was for decades the disciple? Who was the one that figured it out where now they're the sage, Chinese dude with the long white, mustache that, like in the movies, right? That's gonna this old dude's gonna teach me martial arts. He's gonna break you.
Like Kris son, I am your sensei.
Yes. So everyone should be asking, where's the master's mind? Find the mind of the master. Find the mind of the person who's mastered it. And that person will always have the shortest point between two distances.
Of course. 100% agree with you. How do you do it? How do you find someone? So, I've heard your story and you've talked about your first real estate mentor, your first couple that helped you get going. Talk to me the details. What did you actually do? Because I believe you did some things different than what most people do.
Yeah. So the first thing that I did is I wasn't asking, where were you educated? It wasn't, where did you learn? The first person I had as a mentor had been bankrupt 2 times. And that fascinated me. At first I was like, hey, this guy's probably got a disease. You should stay away because he has failed. But the person was already successful again in their life. And that got me kind of curious. But what had me more curious was the fact that this person had made over $10 million in real estate. I was attracted to the result. And there's this passage in the good book, the New Testament, that says, it's talking about basically who do you know who to trust, right? Like what if this person is really a ravenous wolf in sheep's clothing? And they said, you can only know by a person's fruit, or in other words, by the result. So I could be a con artist and I could be selling everyone on how amazing I am and why they should give me money for doing X, Y, and Z. But the reality is, pause. What are your fruits and how do I look it up and how do I verify? And I publish a document that basically publishes my last $500 million worth of real estate. We're updating it with another $250,000. And a person can literally Google the addresses, go to the county website, see my ownership, and verify, in fact, what I've done. And if they dig deep enough, they'll see all the money that I'm making. And so, I think the first principle in finding a mentor, you first have to know what you want. And then when you know really what you want, then you have to start looking for someone that has the results that you're seeking.
So you did this and you met someone that had the results you were seeking. How'd you get into their airspace?
It's actually kind of a bizarre. This person was making several $100,000 a year at a sales job. And I was a college kid at the same sales job. And I'm like, man, if you've been so successful, why are you doing this? That also made me curious, except that I started getting in their car, going out, looking at their deals. And turns out that often hyper successful people are also hyper productive people. They can sometimes be workaholics. I've witnessed that. They can sometimes be married first to their work, then to their wife or husband or whatever.
Perhaps experienced it, Kris?
Dude, I for a decade, I was like, I couldn't work enough. And the problem was, an outsider would look at it and be like, dude, what's wrong with you? Yeah. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm having the time of my life.
Don't you have family members that ask you, like, do you ever stop working?
I once had a brother-in-law that said, okay, Kris, like, what do you really like doing for fun? No, not work. I'm like, no. Business. I'm building this business right now and I'm doing this. No, he's like, no. What do you like doing when you're not working? And I said, well, see, that's the thing. It's not work. This is my play. This is how I show up in life. And this is what I do that creates and builds value. It's a game. It's complicated. It's hard. And I love the challenge of it.
That's awesome. Okay. So how did you were working with this gentleman. How did you convince them to start teaching you what they knew?
So it's interesting. The first 2 people that I had made over $10 million had 2 very different approaches to real estate in just their personalities. The first one, I showed up on his doorstep at 10 o'clock at night, said, hey, I tracked you down. Will you teach me? And he never wanted to talk to me again because I had crossed some boundaries, but that's how desperate I was to be successful. My second mentor, he was way more open, he was willing to coach me. He's willing to train me. This mentor did not charge me money. He basically let me follow him around and just watch and learn and observe and ask a million questions. I think he got some significance out of training and passing knowledge on. And frankly, in some ways, why do I go into the studio for hours every week producing content like this? Because there's a part of me that knows that 99.9% of anyone listening to this right now, I will never meet you. But part of my legacy in life is hoping that I do good by imparting knowledge and wisdom to you that you might get no other way. Because frankly, it's not super easy to get into my airspace. You can come to my live events, but the level that I'm playing business at and the level that I'm growing financially, it is getting more and more difficult to get proximity. And yet that's the name of the game. I remember when I met my first billionaire, we had a single interaction and I thought, until I have the mind of a master who's made billions that I can access anytime I want, my personal mastermind experience will be limited. And I've got now a friend that every time I go to Florida, I work out with. This person sold their business for $1.6 billion. They were the sole owner of it. And this is a person that I go to from time to time for advice. And just a couple weeks ago, gave me some fantastic advice.
On top of this question of how do you find a mentor, a lot of people look at you as a mentor.
Yeah.
And you of course are facilitating numerous ways that people can get into your airspace, sort of one directional. TikTok videos, YouTube videos, podcasts, all the content you're putting out there. How does someone get into your airspace on a deeper level than that? If someone, like you said, 99% you won't meet, but those 1%ers that are like, no, man, my ship is tied to Kris's. I want to learn.
Okay, let me share the most genius way I've ever seen it done.
Yeah, okay.
I admire when people use the same strategy that I've used to hack. And this is a secret. It starts with identifying your mentor. When you do find a way to get into their airspace, we'll talk about how, but when you do get in their airspace, instead of trying to figure out how they can help you, you've got to figure out how to help them. You've got to find out how you possess any possible skill set that could be used to become valuable to them. And so I've done that for people. I've made myself indispensably valuable to them by gifting knowledge and helping this way and that way. And that has opened up the biggest doors, because what it does is it invokes the law of reciprocity. People want to reciprocate after value has been bestowed. Now, by the way, if you can't, bestow any value, it just means that you need to do more masterminding, you need to do more skill acquisition, and you need to strive for bigger results, because the reality is there's no real shortcut. Like, you have to learn and then implement. Like, your implementation and producing a result or failing at it is your resume. And I want to be really clear. Failure is not bad on your resume. When I said that my first mentor had those 2 bankruptcies, those were not failures. Those were all the more reasons to listen and learn from this individual, because you should be able to learn from the good, and you should definitely be able to learn from the negative experiences. Whatever you are learning, whatever books you're reading, whatever classes that you're in, the number one place where people fail is they fail to participate. And so if you want to get in the game, it doesn't happen by having money. You get money as a result of trying. You've got to be putting yourself out there. So for example, if I had a mentor, and let me give you a real practical example. I met Roland Frazier. If you don't know who he is, you should look him up. He's one of the foremost leaders in the world today on mergers and acquisitions. If you want to build a business to exit for buco bucks, this is the dude you want to learn from. Well, unbeknownst to me, I'm always in the spirit of learning and growing. And if I don't have a mentor, I'm always learning from some kind of book. I signed up for this dude's program. I found it on Instagram. I'm like, oh, dude, $55 class on how to buy and sell companies. And so I signed up for it. And I never took the time to get into the class before I had the opportunity to meet this individual. I had a friend of mine say, oh yeah, do you know Roland Frazier? You should meet him. I'm like, dude, I just bought his freaking course last month. Well, he puts me on a 3-way text. He introduces me. And the first thing out of my mouth is, Roland, oh my gosh, I bought your class this last month. I haven't watched it yet, but I've got my login and everything set up because I think that what you do and teach is so valuable. And in fact, I couldn't believe that you were giving that much value away for only $55. Now, how do you think he felt on that exchange?
Gratified, impressed, proud that his message was reaching someone. He certainly felt
edified, right? Because he knew that I had a genuine interest, because my interest started before our first interaction. And there's a hint there, which is when you have a mentor, sometimes you can only start by learning from afar, books. But then all of these people usually have events or online events. So then boom, you go and maybe you're just one in a sea of thousands of people. So what should you do? Freaking get front row, drop comments, try to get noticed, right? Every time I go to one of these live events, I wait for the opening. Where can I seat myself that when they pass by, I can drop some knowledge that shows them I am unlike everyone else in the audience and maybe more worthy of being their star pupil. Because I'm going to tell you something right now. Not all great mentors are out there are looking for a star pupil, but do you know how many of them are flattered when they find the person that is willing to go deeper and further? I mean, Carson, how did it feel when that dude out of nowhere sent pizza to the office with an email the next day saying, how was the pizza? Like, you have to admit.
It was a good approach.
It got our
attention.
So I hang out with a group of people that literally how we get attention. Like I had my buddy Sean Callaghy come out to my event and he helped me raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for my foundation. And that made an impact. So you should be asking, what do I want? Who are the masters whose minds I want to learn from? And then number 3, how can you create value for them and preferably indispensable value? By the way, that could come in the form of a free internship. That could come in the form of just buying their mastermind program and learning from them in a group of people, but getting closer proximity to them. I mean, when I first wanted to learn from Tony Robbins after I had had dozens of mentors, my first move was to pay 10 grand and go to a Tony Robbins business mastery event. And at the event, they talked about this $100,000 mastermind. I'd never paid that much for a mastermind. I wrote the check after talking to my wife, showed up at the very first event. I got as close to the front as they would possibly let me. And then within the first hour exercise, I was the first to raise my hand. He called on me and I walked right into an intervention where out of anyone in that room, probably only maybe 6, 7, or 8 people over the course of a week would get the opportunity that was now right before me. I had to pay to be in that airspace, but then I showed up. So today, could someone pay $500 or $1,000 and attend one of my 4-day life-changing events and then pay an extra $500 for VIP front row seating, and with a very small ticket price, get on the front row and then literally participate in a manner where they could not be ignored, so that on break, when that person approached me, my natural impulse would be, instead of, I'm tired, I'm drained, I don't know if I want to talk to a human right now, instead say, oh my gosh, this person has been playing fall. This is a person I want to connect with. So you should be asking, not just how do I create value, but how do I get in their good graces? Now, someone might say, Kris, that sounds like sucking up. So, hello? Like, how committed are you to your dreams? Are you going to let pride get in your way? No, instead, when you find the master and you value what's in their mind, you want to suck all of the knowledge out of it you possibly can. You should become a roadie, a groupie. You should freaking read, consume. Like for me, I don't want a mentor for a decade. I want to be in your life for freaking like a year or 6 months or 2 months and just grab all the knowledge I possibly can, because I got to move on to my next mentor. That's the game I'm playing. Do you know how many people I am mentoring with right now? Right now, Dolph DeRoos is teaching me the game of commercial real estate better than anyone on this planet can. I got Robert G. Allen, who's opening my eyes to all new techniques and methodologies for no money down real estate, and he's looking at doing a TV series thing with me. I've got Roland Frazier, who, if I were to drop some names of the people we're talking about getting into business with, it would be pretty mind-blowing. But there's no way I'd secure these deals without Roland. He's an expert at this. He's had 100 exits. So literally every time I'm on the phone with Roland, every time I text him, I am accessing massive amounts of knowledge and information. Kevin Harrington and I were talking this week. This guy from Shark Tank, right? He's the master of the franchise business. I got some questions for him on franchise. So today, if you look at like my world today, my peers, the best thing about becoming a mentor is that your peers are usually also mentors. And these are the people that you hang out with and you learn from. And guess what? Learning only happens on an accelerated level. Everyone listening to me right now should be asking, which master has the mind that I want to learn from? And then you want to do what is opposite human nature. Human nature is to find the slowest road to get somewhere. I will start by consuming your free book, and then I'm going to pay for the cheapest class you offer because I want to get lots of knowledge for cheap. Let me tell you something, in the mentoring world, you get what you pay for. And as soon as I hack that, I always ask, what's your highest level program? I stroke that check. And then all I'm buying is the deepest level of proximity, which means my conversations are going to be more meaningful. The knowledge dump is going to be immersive and it's going to be accelerated. And I'm going to get what I came for sooner rather than later, because I don't want you to be my mentor for the next decade, sensei. Like, I want to jam with you. I want to extract as much knowledge as I can, and then I want to move on. So the real question, Carson, is what happens when your mind contains dozens of minds from dozens of masters. You become an amalgamation of every idea that you've tried from the people you've learned from. So in my world, I've done this with my body when I struggled with my health. I have written checks and paid people and gotten to the gym and worked with people and done all the mind work to shift out of my sugar addictions, et cetera. I did this years ago to have a level of mastery over my body today where it's easy being me and I don't have to go on a freaking diet every 6 to 8 weeks. But I've done that in my relationships. Right now, every day, I am literally enjoying the fruits of the most amazing marriage. My wife and I frequently are like, man, do you think anyone else has it as good as us? Do you think anyone else is experiencing the magic of marriage the way that we are? And I look at this in all areas of my life, and it's always the same. Don't start with books. Books are overrated. Execution is underrated, and mentoring is the most underrated of them all.
So you've done a number of masterminds over the years, but I feel like we need to let the world know there's a new one out that you've been doing that is different than any that we've done before.
I've been pretty hush-hush about it.
Yeah. Are you ready to?
No, we can talk about it.
Talk about it a little bit more?
Yeah.
I've never seen you do anything that allowed this much potent information and proximity at such an affordable price.
So it's called Financial Genius, and it's where I take all of my financial mentors, and we are all in a single mastermind. Normally a mastermind, like a Tony Robbins mastermind, you're really getting with Tony and you're just going to learn from Tony, and it's really what Tony has to teach you, and he's got so much good stuff to teach you. Sometimes masterminds like that are just the right way, and in the past I've led many like that, where it was just learn from me, and I'm gonna share this expertise with you, and then I'm gonna help you experience it, which is what's important. Financial Genius is where I have, over the years, people can imagine, $1 billion in real estate, and then they don't even know about my business most of the time, my business, experience. You take all of that, you take all the mindset training, and I've collected over the years some of the most amazing men and women, and I approached all of them and I said, I want to create the most transformative financial mastermind on the planet. It won't be about real estate. It won't be about commercial real estate. It won't be about business. It won't be about mergers and acquisitions. It won't be about mindset. It won't be about franchise. It'll be about all of them. And here's what I'm trying to remedy. Eventually, people, Carson, will find their sweet spot where they're going to make as much money as possible, but they have to find the right vertical. Is it single family real estate? Is it commercial real estate? Is it multifamily real estate? Is it not real estate at all? Is it some other form of business? Is it a simple side hustle? Is it stocks? Like, look at what the wealthy do. They make all their money in the stock market, crypto, real estate, and business. That's it. That's where they make their money in some form or another. Some of them are buying and selling businesses, and some are building businesses. But they're all in these exact same spaces. Well, I've broken that up into 25 mini verticals on the entire conversation of money when I didn't understand what whole life insurance was and how you can use it as a impenetrable bank that you can borrow at nearly for free to fund your investments. Or it's things that I learned about captive insurance, or it's things that I've learned about some of the hottest, coolest tax breaks, or it's things that I've learned about accounting, or it's things that I've learned about debt financing, or it's things that I've learned about business or franchises or royalties or when to bring partners in or not. You have all these verticals. And if you only understand a few of the verticals, you are handicapped. It's like you got an IQ of 30 trying to make money in this world. You need to experience enough verticals so that you understand money as a whole. Like, do you understand financial easement when the government prints money and what that does to inflation? If you don't understand that, then you don't understand how the entire money market works. If you don't understand franchises and when you should franchise a business, you might be missing out on your next $100 million play. If you don't understand a version of real estate. So I basically put a mastermind together that said, I'm pulling all the masters' minds together, and this is where you hang out for a year. It's where you get access to me every week. That doesn't happen anywhere else. And I'm going to make sure you get taught on every vertical of money. And I find that as I'm doing this, I'm helping people find their niche. Ryan Rice that entered this in the last 2 months, $50,000 of side income from what he learned there. Just absolutely killing it. I think about A couple other names that I don't want to drop, very successful business people that are stuck, they're plateaued, but they're businesses that are doing millions and millions and millions a year. And I introduced them to Roland Frazier that is now helping them figure out the small moves to create exitable value. So it's a brand new mastermind, and it's where I am pulling together the most genius financial people on the planet. And then I decided I'm going to do something really weird. I'm not going to charge your typical $25,000, $50,000, or $100,000 price tag. I want people that are truly committed to mastering the game of money. I want it to be insanely affordable. So I've got a brand new mastermind, and there you have it.
Can we talk a little bit about the different names that you're mentoring with and how they'll be playing with Financial Genius? Because Kris, you are connected to people that I could never dream of connecting with unless I've gone through the path that you've already, run forward.
Yeah. So we've talked about Roland Frazier. 2 weeks ago, Roland lit it up. We have to bring him back because what he taught about, instead of building a business, how do you find one that's ripe with profits that you can play in for 2 or 3 weeks and then sell it for 2, 3, 5 times, 10 times more money? And he talked about exactly how to do that. It was so valuable to our existing business owners. Joseph McClendon, who's been Tony Robbins' #1 coach on stage, who for the last 35 years has been teaching the ultimate neural hacks of how do you hack the mind for producing new habits. Dude, like there were some moments, right? I mean, inside joke there that where he just slayed it and he just brought it. I've got another guest that's about to come on whose name I can't drop yet. It's just for the mastermind members, but this individual is one of the top hip hop artists, one of the most successful of our generation, who's going to be talking about a different angle inside of influence and business. There's just a name. Dolph DeRoos is about to come on teaching international and local commercial real estate and how the commercial game changed with the pandemic and how it's become literally able to finance deals for free compared to residential real estate, and how a single deal can make you like literally lifetimes of income. I think on one deal over 7 years, he did over $100 million. I think he bought in at 26 million, sold it for like 114 million. So basically every financial vertical I'm teaching, and then I'm giving all of my mastermind members access to these individuals, and it's changing everything for them.
I love this. I love that we're doing this. I love that I get to join each week. First off, I just want to reiterate, like you don't do anything weekly anymore. Your time is so precious.
This one has to, because it's financial church, dude.
I love that.
It's financial church, which means every week you need to have a ritual, a habit. By the way, the things that are really important that are like church, we do them consistently.
Yeah.
And
if not daily,
money is a game
weekly.
that everyone should do consistently, and learning all the rules can't be done in an hour. It takes time, and it takes a level of discipline to get to a level of mastery. So that's where I'm giving all that exposure.
So you've often said proximity is power.
Not my phrase, Tony Robbins.
Okay. And do you agree with it?
100%.
How come?
So Tony actually, he shared a story. I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit, but Tony talked about when his whole world financially changed.
Yeah.
This is after he had been in business for a long time. He was only running his own show, and he was still struggling a certain level financially, but he was invited to be part of a mastermind. And it was made up of literally billionaires or ultra successful millionaires. And these people, a few times a year, would hop on private jets and they would go travel somewhere in the world and do crazy, exotic, once in a lifetime bucket list stuff. And these trips were like, I don't know, I can't remember, it was like 50 or 80 or $100,000. And Tony just at the time didn't have the money for that. So he got a seat, he got a ticket. He was invited by a member of the mastermind, which never happened, to actually come and hang out with like these billionaires and super successful people. And he shared this story that he didn't feel like he could have taken the time off. These guys would sometimes go for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And he certainly didn't feel like he had the money for it. So he knew he couldn't pass up the opportunity. So he forked out the cash and he went on this experience. And while he was on the plane, nervous as a madman because he was so far out of his comfort zone, and his buddy that had invited them there told him to basically relax, and then gave him advice that changed everything for him, that basically led to this quote: "You can learn more from one mentor than you can earn in lifetimes." And this is what the mentor said. He said, I want you to go make a list of the most successful people in business when you get home. And I want you to just meet with them and get to know them and learn about them and see if you can create value for them. And Tony didn't quite know at the time that was a very important assignment, because 6 months later, they found themselves on another one of these exotic trips, and his buddy was following up and he said, so how'd it go? And Tony's like, well, actually pretty well. Like, I sat down with this person and this person, that person. And when the guy found out that Tony had only met with a handful of people, he looked at him dead in the eyes. And I'm going to butcher it. I can't remember what he said, but it was something to the effect of, hey, the next time a billionaire goes out of his way to give you the best financial advice that would change everything and make everything you want actually come true, you may want to actually take it serious. Tony went home, and before the next trip, he was doing multiple meetings every single week. And 6 months later, when they reconnected, his whole world had completely changed. When I heard that story, it made an impact on me. And I started making time for successful people like I'd never had before. Carson, you know what's happening in our financial world. In just the last 30 days, what's changed?
Doors just are opening everywhere.
Everything has changed, dude. Everything has changed. I mean, to the tune of multi-billion, right? Like, not a small number. We're not talking about $100 million chump change, Chauncey money. We're not talking about $10 million. We're not talking about $1 million. But frankly, it's nothing more than a combination of getting access to the minds of masters. And just remember what that means. The minds of masters, the people that you want to learn from, that could dance circles around your dreams. They could probably accomplish them in a couple afternoons. And it'll take you years because you're not a master, but there will never be a faster way than masterminding with masters of minds.
Will there ever be a time in your life, Kris, that you're not participating in some sort of mastermind or not mentoring?
Tony has another saying, whatever isn't growing is dying. And I don't think people really understand what that means. I think that Gallup poll says 85% of people hate what they do for a living.
Yeah.
And as a result, they've created a notion, a fantasy called retirement. And it's where they no longer have to work. And frankly, it's rehabilitation from having spent their time as a whore, accepting money for something that they hate. That right there, by the way, welcome to the American dream. The majority of us are whoring out our time to do work we don't like or want to do. That is 85% of America. People don't like what they do. Most of the time they don't. They're only doing it for the paycheck.
Yeah.
And you know what? Life is meant to be lived with excitement and passion and results, so that work disappears and it gets replaced with what you're supposed to do with your life. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's sad, the current condition that most humans find themselves in. I just tell them, I said, you know, the first mistake is when you settle. I'd rather earn less money and do what I love and come at life from a good energy and then learn to be a successful investor than do something that I really don't like.
When you have, so I love that story from Tony Robbins. That's very sobering. And it made me think, like, have you ever had someone in a mastermind that you were leading and you brought your A game every single time, but the way they showed up ensured that they weren't getting the value?
Pissed me off. Some people don't know how to participate once they get into the airspace of a master and they don't know what to do. And unfortunately, our default training is to take it for granted.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in a different mastermind, and this guy came up to me. He had been in it for like 6 months. He started whining and complaining. He's like, oh man, that was so much money. And then do you remember when they promised us one thing, but then they had to change it and they did it different? Man, that really sucked. Like, I don't know about this thing, man. And all they were doing was spewing up concerns and doubts.
And they were wanting you to validate their concerns.
They wanted me
to
validate, which I don't validate victims, and it sometimes pisses them off. I don't ever. I literally last week had a crazy run-in with a close friend because I would not validate her victimhood. It has really upset her. I said, I'm sorry, I won't break that rule. It's called a boundary. And if I'm going to help you, it's not going to be to do what you do all day long, which is nursing your victimhood. So this person was doing the poison thing.
Yeah.
And they wanted to enroll me in it. I just turned to him and I said, listen, let me give you the best advice I can possibly give you right now. When you write the check to go into any type of mentorship, you have to, number one, have a confirmation that is deeper than logic. You need intuition on your side that is telling you, I got a feeling, not just rationale that this is the right thing. By the way, sometimes my feelings go against rationale and I will go with my feelings because your rationale will screw you. Your rationale only knows how to produce more of what it has in the past. But remember, the whole purpose of mentorship is to get something you've never gotten before. It's to go further, which means there will be a leap of faith. And the only way to do a leap of faith effectively is to believe in something you can't see, or it's to hope in a result that you don't know if it's going to happen. Faith is what brings about our biggest results, not our I know rationale mind that says, until I see it, I will not believe it. And so this is the advice I gave this young man. I said, listen, man, when I wrote my check and I entered this thing, I already decided that it was the best decision I could have made for my time and my money and this point in my life. And I go into a mastermind and I already decide before I start exactly what I'm going to get out of it. For example, if it's a money mastermind, then I'll decide, hey, I'm going to invest $10,000 and I expect to make $50,000 in the next 12 months on this, a 5 times return. By the way, what kind of things are you doing in your life right now that are producing a 5x return? Probably not a whole lot. This is aggressive because, by the way, if you can get a 5x in year 1, to help justify your expense, perhaps, what do you think you'll get in year 2? This is the principle that people don't get about the mastermind principle that Napoleon Hill talks about. It's that the benefit does not year 1. That is the least of the benefit. The bigger benefit will come in year 2. The bigger benefit will come in year 3. And every year the benefit grows and gets bigger. For example, if you need to put it in these weak terms, college degrees earn twice as much as high school degrees. So if I'm going to go into debt and go to college, then you're doing it because you're hoping there's going to be an ROI. Well, let's just say that you make double the amount of high schoolers. Let's say you make an extra $25,000 a year. Well, over a decade, that's $250,000. Over 2 decades, over 3, over your working lifetime, that might end up being almost $1 million. Good investment, yeah. But mentoring is even better. It usually takes a whole lot less time and it usually drives a way harder punch on results. So you're going to get a lot further where you want to go faster. And so I basically turned to this individual and I just said, you got to decide up front from a space of faith and conviction and hope that this is the best decision you could have made. Because by the way, you can go back on your thinking, but you can't go back on intuition and never go. By the way, the moment you go against your feeling or your intuition or your gut or Holy Ghost, the moment you go against that, you will now create a seed of doubt that will surface in your life like a cancer. Because every time something gets hard or difficult, guess what your pattern is? Whine, complain, and say that it didn't work. And all you really are learning to do is mistrust yourself. That is the worst thing you can do, which is why when you make a decision from a space of feeling and you have conviction behind it or a space of faith, you have to decide and sell yourself. This is the best decision that I could have made. In a moment, I'll share with you where I do this every single day. Number 1, you got to decide it's the best decision. Number 2, define what you're getting out of it. A 5x return. I made a decision I was going to get a 10x return out of that 100K experience. And that year I did not. I got a $600,000 experience. So I fell short. But the next year I made over $1 million on it, and the year after millions. So guess what? I feel pretty good about it. And a company came out of it with a friend of mine that I met in that mastermind that hopefully will become a multi-billion-dollar business. We're working on it. It's getting traction and momentum right now. It's pretty cool. So I don't even know, you'll never know until you die what your real ROI is. And even then it still might be calculated if you've learned how to translate yourself and clone yourself into a legacy. So I basically say, go in that it's the best decision that you've ever made. And then number 10, decide what you're going to get out of it. And then number 3, make it happen. And here's where I see that happen every single day, because he wasn't doing that. And he didn't like my response much because I wouldn't feed his victim. But I see this every day at the gym. If you've ever been to a gym before and you had a period of time in your life when you were going consistently, I'm at a point in my life where I bring a clipboard. I know every exercise I did the week prior, and I'm measuring every set and every rep and every weight, resistance, difficulty against what I did before. And I go do this for 6 weeks before I reset. And I made a goal 6 weeks ago that I was going to do incline bench and get my incline bench as strong as my flat bench. Now, my flat bench, I can bust out 225 pounds 20 times, but I could not do that on my incline. Today, actually, this morning of the recording was my 6th week. And this week, I did 20 reps at 225 on my incline. And I was pissed. I met my goal. I felt good about that. You know, I was pissed. I was pissed because the week before I had done 17 and I remember how hard it was. And so this week I said, I'll do 20. When I got to number 19, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to smoke 20. And then I wanted to get to 22, but when I got to 20, it was so hard I didn't do one more. And this is what you learn about lifting. Whatever you decide before you start that you can do, if there's rationale behind it, like having a clipboard that tells you what you did and you're only pushing 10% or 5% or 3% more, you'll actually be able to do it 5 out of 6 weeks. But the weird thing is you end up only ever being able to do what you decide you can. If you don't know what you did the week before and you're just trying to do what you did the week before, you can make this week where you're stronger just as hard as last week. You can also psychosomatically convince yourself to do 3 reps less and have it be the hardest thing on the planet. And so the weird thing is, like, I love going to the gym because I have probably 50 opportunities, right? That many reps and sets, et cetera. I've got 50 opportunities to be stronger this week than what I was the week before. And on 45 of those 50, I will be stronger. And 5 of them, I'm going to be so fatigued and so tired that my numbers will actually go down. But I get pissed when I know that I could have done more, but psychosomatically, I limited myself. We're all psychosomatically limiting ourselves in our own limiting ways and our own limiting beliefs. And that's why we need mentors. They push us outside of our comfort zone and they invite us to do sometimes 10 times more or 20 times more than we thought previous. And that's when your big breakthroughs come. My biceps are still hurting because a week ago, my buddy took my clipboard and played a nasty trick on me.
Oh no.
I was supposed to warm up on a weight and he had switched my numbers around and he took me right to my max. And by the way, when I do my max, I'm doing like 4, 5, 6, 7 reps. But when I do my warm up at half the weight, I'm doing like 20 reps. He had me convinced that my max was my warm up and I couldn't remember. And so I did my max 20 times.
And you did it.
I did it. I couldn't believe it. Because, by the way, the week before, I had not done that max more than 8. And yet I did 20 times.
Because in your mind, you'd already decided.
Because in my mind, I already decided. So, by the way, when you find your mentor, so first of all, what is the result that you're seeking? Who can you gain proximity to that has mastered that result and has achieved it 10 times over? Number 3, create value for them. And if you can't get in their airspace to create value, then buy your way into their highest level program. I swear it's worth going into debt over. And then when you join, you're going to be freaked out. You're going to be nervous. You're going to be neurotic. And you got to decide, this is the best decision. If it really is, like if your intuition says yes, then decide this is the best decision that you've ever made. And then you decide the result that you're going to go after, hell or high water, no matter what, because whatever you mentally decide is no different than what happens at the gym every single day psychosomatically. And boom, you've hacked you've hacked the shortest distance to success.
Does the vehicle matter?
I don't think so.
How come? Because most people think it does. Most people think it's all about the vehicle. And when they fail, they think it's like they chose the wrong vehicle.
You know what my mentors really do for me? They tell me something is possible when I don't believe it, but because they say it, I do. So it's almost like by proxy, their faith is holding space for a possibility that I don't have the experience to believe in. What is the best benefit that I get from a mastermind? Someone telling me that something that is crazy hard for me is crazy easy. And I watched it with Roland. I get on the first call. I'm like, hey bro, we're going to be on this call tomorrow with this high profile person. I tried last week. I don't know how to close the deal. He said, oh, well, what do you want? We talked for 10 minutes, made a plan. He's like, it's easy. Did the call the next day. And,
was it easy?
And it was easy. Then he couldn't make the next call and I was on my own and I flew solo and guess what?
It was easy again.
I was easy. So mentors hold space for possibilities and they make hard things easy because for them it now is. And when you get in the airspace of someone that tells you it's easy, that you respect and that you believe they're the alpha in your life, then when it's your turn to show up, boom. I think the best benefit of Mastermind, by the way, is sometimes not even what you get from the mentor, but sometimes the other participants, the other members, because you're a bunch of peers seeking to outdo your previous best. You're not competing with them. You'll hope your biggest deals come from doing something with them. It's not that. I find for me a healthy peer pressure that says, the next time I'm around these dudettes, the next time we talk and chat and jam, I want to be able to share with them how much I've grown since the last time I saw them. And that is the energy that I find in the best masterminds. Absolutely love it. In other words, it's like doing a sport where the only person that you can win against is yourself. It's just becoming the best version of who you are. And I'll get private for just a moment.
Okay.
I believe life has a purpose. I believe it's tied to something divine that we've been given inside of us. I believe that if each one of us was living our destiny, our defined purposes, that we would all be serving and showing up in different capacities in different ways. We wouldn't be mimicking each other. We would be in our true element, and we would be our most powerful selves. And the whole reason why I really love masterminding is, in the beginning, it was I want to be good at making money because money touches everything and I want to be good at it. But then I learned that I wanted to be good at health because health touches everything. And then I learned I really wanted to master my relationships because it touches everything. And all that's really happened is I feel like a purpose I'm fulfilling, and maybe one that we all share in this human family, is that if it's true that whatever isn't growing is dying, then maybe what I'm really doing with this masterminding is I'm flexing for my greatest growth. If growth is what keeps us alive, then there's got to be a survival version of growth. There's got to be a thriving version of growth. But I feel like I'm tasting like the fruit of the Garden of Eden growth, where I am growing at max. And that's something some people will never understand. The greatest failure in life, as Dolph DeRoos taught me, is to not participate. So I'm doing the opposite. I'm not kind of participating. That's what mediocre people do. I'm not just on the front row. I'm freaking giving it everything I've got, because I almost lost my life once. And I'm reminded by that experience every day that the only satisfying feeling I deserve to have at bedtime is if I gave my all in everything that I'm doing, which, by the way, leads to maximum growth.
Wow. That's awesome, Kris. Thank you for getting real. Can we get a little controversial now?
Sure.
College. Is it a mastermind?
No.
Is there been
No.
Kris, if I lined up random 30 people off the street and brought them in here to talk to you about college,
it's overrated.
They would all say college is the most important thing. You have to do it. You have to.
And then you know what I'd say? Show me your results. And you know what the results will tell me? Will tell me that they have confidence in a career that makes money to pay for their day-to-day expenses and set a little bit aside for their financial future. That is the epitome of success in that program.
Yeah.
So for career training, it is important. It has a place. But unfortunately, people think that that is the tip of the spear. They think that's the end of the journey. I'm like, that's kind of the path to mediocre, normal, average. That's what you do if you want to be like everybody else. And some people do, and so that's fine. But I think there's a lot of people that are listening to my show. I think there's a lot of people watching my social media that like following me because I'm always pushing outside the lines, because I expect this one life to deliver me lifetimes of fulfillment, not just a life. It's called Have It All. It's not have a few things. The show isn't called, join in with your mediocre friends and sing Kumbaya and like live with less. It's also not about being rich. It's about being wealthy in the mind, in the body, in your finances. Having it all is when you're truly satisfied and fulfilled in all of your endeavors. And that only comes from pushing and struggle.
What isn't a university setup? Isn't it supposed to be that you go and your professor is the one who is the master and you've come to learn from their mind? Where did it,
by the way, this is
Carson,
this is a true principle. Yes, college is ultimate career training.
Yeah.
In most professions, it's actually the opposite now, but
in some
professions, it is the ultimate career training.
Yeah.
But you know what? You can help someone become a dentist and don't teach them that what you're really doing is training them how to run and own a business. And then they can fail at that business.
Yeah.
And their career training is only about covering the day-to-day of life.
Right.
So in other words, it's
teeth,
limited. And so my beef with college is that people think it is the end all be all. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, think of college like junior high. Something comes after it, hopefully, And ain't nobody want to repeat that. For some people, college will take some people maybe career-wise as far as they want to go. But I think that being a lifelong student on everything this planet has to offer, like think of all the things that you're passionate about. For me, I guess this is my bottom line. This is my truth. Figure out how to make enough money so that you can guarantee that you only get paid to do things that you love. And that transcends 85% of people with a college degree right now. So it is insufficient. There's more, and they know it. I did it. I got my degree. My piece of paper says I'm smart. I got my job. I'm working here. Why am I so unhappy? Well, that's because this is a pit stop in your journey. And if you think this is what the next 40 years looks like without getting higher education, college is not higher education. That's the highest education you got. There's higher education. And you know what the highest education will always be? The highest education will always be a mentor. Think about it. In college, you're with 100 other students, 10 other students, usually 200 other students, and the professor is not customizing or individualizing anything. You can only raise your hand so many times. But what happens when your mentor and you are one-on-one? What happens when you're on a level of texting back and forth, phone calls whenever you need them? There will never be a more accelerated version of learning and a more customized version of learning than that.
So if someone came to you and said, hey, I'm thinking about going to college, or maybe instead I'll join your mastermind.
You ask the dumbest, weirdest questions. Listen, I'm talking to my daughter about it right now. So my daughter's 15 years old.
Oh, this is good. This is a
No,
real
this
life
is real.
example.
This is real. This is
But
real.
by the way, Kris, you say this is a dumb question, but do you know how many times we
I
get
don't
this
mean
on
dumb.
YouTube?
I'm like, you just love poking the bear.
Yes, I do love poking the bear. And we get this question on YouTube all the time on our comments.
I know. First of all, is college career training? Yes. Does it have some aspect of social training? Sure. Does it have all sorts of other benefits? Like I got to be, co-ed and I got to go yes, there's a lot of like the dances and the parties and the hangouts and the fun and the social life. But at the end of the day, it's also career training.
Yeah.
So first of all, college is becoming one of the least important types of career training on the planet rapidly. Whereas you had to have a degree to get any kind of job before. Right now, a lot of companies, like you pointed out, they're actually looking for people that know how to get results. Do I have to go to college to learn to code? No. Do I go to college to get a law degree? Yes. It's becoming very black and white when it's a yes and when it's a no. So my daughter's like, Dad, I really like video work and I like editing and and I'm just thinking, well, shoot, I'm ramping up my video work like crazy. I could easily help my daughter like start her own part-time film editing business. We could be a client of hers. And then how easily could she like scale that up full time if she ever wanted to and be her own business worker, like her own business owner in that space? Like she could do that. Does she need to, you tell me, Mr. Degree in Film, do you have to go to college to learn how to operate a camera?
Not if you're motivated.
Now let me ask you because I don't know the answer to this. Do you have to go to college to get a degree in film if you want to get a job in film?
Not if you're motivated.
See, that's an interesting question right there. Yeah.
Because most people, I think, need college because they do not have the discipline to create structure in which they'll do the right activities consistently. Most people will sit on their duff all day long if they don't have someone else holding them by the hand and saying, do this.
Now, by the way, you're hitting something really important because this is my blind spot. My blind spot is I'd love to project that everyone's just as capable and motivated as I am. But there's a reason why there's a huge following for Dave Ramsey. He makes beautiful financial plans for broke people. And frankly, it's people who are bad with money. And if you're bad with money, man, you better sign up and follow all of Dave's advice and ignore all of mine. Because I want you to go into debt to make money. I do. My plan is to be rich. His plan is to keep you from being as poor as you would be otherwise. And so you have a point there. Which is why I feel like emotional intelligence, when I mentor people, is the most important asset I can teach someone because I can teach a person how to tap into unlimited motivation. We should do a podcast episode on that. How do you create unlimited motivation for everything that you want in your life? And by the way, it comes down to emotional intelligence, and what you practice is what you get. And most people do not have a daily regimen for practicing a version or level of emotional intelligence where literally it's like, Kris, why are you always so full of energy? Are you just like a passionate guy by nature?
Are you on drugs?
Yes. I'm like, no, and I'm not on caffeine either. I am made this way by choice because I did 4 years of my life depressed. I know what depression tastes like. I had 4 years of my life where I didn't want to live. I had 4 days of my life where I cried every single day. I had 4 days of my life where I was one of the most emotionally unintelligent human beings on the planet. And I remember when I finally came out of it, I swore to myself, I said, I will never, ever do depression again, because I know the moment when feeling sad about something turns into a sick feeling of getting a high from feeling so low that I want to maintain that horrible, bad, negative energy. And when I was in it, I felt totally out of control. Today, I know the real truth. It's a choice. And even if it's unconscious for many, it's a choice and it has a payoff. And it's destructive to just about everything, your productivity, your ability to earn income, your ability to connect effectively with other humans. But worst, how can you even connect to God if you can't even connect to yourself? So it's a pandemic. So you're right. I'm hoping that anyone that's watching my social here take some notes and grab some gold nuggets on what they can do to self-motivate. Because if you self-motivate, you'll go further than any of these things, whether we're talking about the technicality of real estate or college or whatever.
Funny, we talked earlier about interviewing people for jobs here at your company. And by the time someone gets an interview, or if they're called back for a second interview especially, we already know they have the skill set.
Yeah.
But here we're actually looking for an X factor. We're looking for this thing that is hard. It doesn't show up on a resume. It's the type of thing that determines whether someone is crotchety during a mastermind.
Dude, I just walked in on it right now. Right in between this, I was listening to Angie and I thought she was quoting me. She was talking to Graham. She's like, you know what? No. And basically, you can't use the word can't. He said, don't ever say that four-letter word. And I'm like, wow, this is weird. It seems like she's quoting a story of mine, but I don't quite remember it that way. And then she's talking about Matthew McConaughey's dad teaching him about don't use the word can. I'm like, oh, this is sweet. Like, she's not quoting me. She's already indoctrinated in the power of positivity, and she got hired that way.
Well, and you know how we hired Angie. She submitted a resume. We took a little bit to get back to her because that's what happens when you have a pile of 80 resumes sitting on your desk. So what'd she do?
She walked in.
She marched down to our office and said, hey, I want to work here. I'd like it. And we all said, okay, that's gumption, that's initiative, and more importantly, it shows that you care.
And
there's
too
many people.
And here's the lie. Here's what they're going to say. And you can't train that. That's the lie. You can train that. You can decide whether you're a morning person or not. You can decide what kind of, dude, just
so you're
2
saying
weeks
you
ago,
can train it in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, you can put it in your DNA. It's just practicing with good energy, literally practicing with good energy. Could it be that dumb and simple? That actually is. I've been, my family knows that I hate peas. And just to ruffle all their feathers 2 weeks ago, I said, I love peas. And now I'm eating peas. And they're like, Dad, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Like, oh my gosh, like Dad, my dad is eating peas that, that he's always claimed taste like dirt.
They do.
And that God's joke on the vegetable family. And now I eat peas. And you know why? Just to demonstrate to my children, and what I want everyone to walk away with is that today you can become any person you've ever wanted to. You don't need to wait for someone or a mentor to give you permission. If there's a habit that you have that you don't like, literally the moment you transform will not be because you've gone through some deep, crazy, horrendous process. It's because you simply chose, and then you decided to stick with your choice. And that's all transformation is. When I do this work where people are like, oh my gosh, Kris, you helped me literally like walk away from decades of fear or sexual abuse or no, whatever it is. When they actually make the change right before my eyes in a matter of minutes, all I'm doing is helping them make a new choice.
Mm-hmm. Proximity certainly is power.
Yep.
Because I think it really helps an individual overcome some of those things by getting into the airspace of someone who already thinks it's easy. I loved what you said about that, about kind of, rubbing up against their faith so that it rubs off on you.
Yeah. But one more destructive. Proximity is destructive. If you hang around the wrong people,
because
they will take you down.
It's neutral. It's a principle of existence.
And if you hang around the people that are like you, get ready to go nowhere and experience plateau after plateau after plateau. I like Walter Mitty. You remember that movie?
Yeah.
Walter Mitty's a story of this guy who just has this crazy imagination, but really otherwise a very unadventurous, boring life. And there's a moment when he just chose to take a leap, to put himself so far outside of his comfort zone, and he started living. He started loving life. And here's a book for everyone to read. It's Donald Miller. It's a million miles in 1,000 years or something like that. And that book, the first 100 pages will piss you off as you read the story of this man stuck in his own mediocrity. And then what he did to break free from it and who he became at the end of the book was just night and day different. It was so exhilarating because it just reminds us that we're the author of our life. And why do you need a mentor? Because if you're serious about your life going as far as it can, you have to find the masters. You got to figure out how to access their mind. It's called a mastermind or a master's mind. And you want to access as many of them as you can. Carson, if I was stuck in my life and I'd saved up a little bit of money, I want to answer your question, college or not, or mentor. Well, I'll put it to you this way. While I was paying my own way through college, I also paid for my mentors. And guess which money invested took me 1,000 times further.
College.
It'll be true. It'll always be true that you need that. If you want to take your life serious, then you should get on the most serious regimen. And there's nothing more serious than full immersion with a mentor that can not teach you stuff. That's what books are for. That's knowledge. Knowledge, not power. A mentor that can show you exactly the steps they took to achieve the result and that they take to achieve it with ease every single time. That is worth its weight in gold times 10.
So if people want proximity to you, they can hit up kriskrohn.com/game plan.
Yep.
And that's actually a site where they can go through an actual game plan with you. It's that cool video module that we had made. At the end of the day, why do we do game plans?
Well, they can also come to my events so they can get my books. My books are free. Just understand that you should measure levels of proximity. A book is like free information online is the lowest level of proximity. A book is the next lowest level of proximity. Taking someone's course, few $100, $1,000, that is a much higher level of proximity. But when you get to a live event, that for me is the moment that everything changes. You come to one of my live events and you play all out for 4 days, and that's 4 live days of proximity in my airspace all day long. And that is a life-changing event for everyone that shows up. And that's quite a claim, but you'll be raising your hand at the end of day 2 saying this is the most transformative experience of your life. And so I would say where you should really start is there. But if you do want a free game plan and you go to kriskrohn.com / what is it, game plan?
Game plan.
Game plan. You'll eventually get to have a conversation with a member of my team and you could ask them about financial genius.
That's what I was going to say is that you could get in touch with one of our consultants and they'll help you know at what level you can play with Kris.
It's probably the most inexpensive mastermind out there.
It is.
And yet it is delivering 6 figures of value easily.
And we're only just get going.
And I love it. I love it. I'm at a place in my life right now where creating irrational levels of value for pennies on the dollar is joyful. And it's just now about how many people can we help.